Unveiling the incredible secrets of the Sphinx, 5 transformative mysteries revealed tonight. The headline blared from the television, but Sarah Thompson felt a chill run down her spine. The Sphinx, its secrets buried deep, much like her own family's legacy. As she watched, a bitter knot tightened in her stomach. Could there be more to her father's work than she had been led to believe? What if his discoveries could indeed reshape history, while she struggled to hold her life together as a single mother battling exhaustion and financial strain? Sarah walked through her cluttered home, each step illuminating the chaos of their lives. The din of Emily's school books spilled across the kitchen table, their tattered edges telling stories of late-night study sessions. A science teacher by day, she poured every ounce of energy into her students. Yet at night, she wrestled with an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. Was she doing enough for Emily? The world outside was unforgiving, opportunities slim. Yet Emily dreamed of unearthing ancient relics in Egypt as if they were lined up on the shelves in their small home. Rummaging through the attic felt like a necessary escape. The familiar scent of dust mixed with memories that lay dormant. What was she searching for? Approval? Answers? As she sifted through yellowing papers and forgotten trinkets, her fingers brushed against something cold and hard. It was an ornate artifact, inscribed with symbols that kindled an ember of excitement. Could this be the key? But as she examined it under a flickering bulb, self-doubt crept in, wrapping around her heart like a vice. Was she equipped to explore this world? The townspeople only saw her as a science teacher, a mere cog in the educational machine. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. In those moments of distraction, Sarah's anxiety spiked. The thought that the very same community that nurtured her was also judging her for wanting more unsettled her. What if Emily's dreams took flight only to be shot down with ridicule? Students were cruel. She had witnessed Emily's struggles firsthand. Emily's tenacity often collided with the harshness of youth. The snickers echoed in Sarah's mind. Was she poised to send her daughter into that fray merely to chase after a ghost from the past? Tension thickened as Sarah unearthed letters from her father, old and fragile, hinting at discoveries long since buried by complicity and silence. Every word illuminated the injustices her father faced, and a fire ignited within her. Questions of courage and resilience roared in her mind. Did she possess the strength to unearth these truths? Would her journey elevate her father's name or lead to her own ruin? As rain began to pour, pounding against the roof, Sarah felt the weight of uncertainty crush her spirit. Clutching the artifact close, she stood at the precipice of discovery, knowing full well that unveiling the secrets of the past could alter everything, but at what cost? The storm outside mirrored the dark turmoil within. Would she forge ahead into the tempest, or would fear silence her voice before it could ever echo against the ages? The air was thick with potential, yet stifling in its doubt. Together they stood on a precipice, poised between legacy and despair, unaware of how fragile yet resolute their journey had become. Would the echoes of her father's past empower her or drown her in despair? In the shadows of their dreams, uncertainty loomed larger than ever. The following morning brought an unsettling clarity as Sarah sat at the kitchen table, the artifact resting before her like an uninvited guest demanding attention. Its intricate designs whispered promises of adventure, history, and purpose. Yet all she felt was an overpowering urge to retreat back into the safety of her ordinary life. The dawn light filtered through the window, illuminating dust motes that danced lazily, mirroring the disarray in her mind. She could hear Emily's soft footsteps as her daughter trudged into the room, bleary-eyed but determined. "Mom, do you think we can go to the museum today? I want to see that new exhibit on Egyptian artifacts," Emily suggested, a hopeful lilt in her voice. The request stirred something deep in Sarah, an echo of her own childhood dreams, how she had idolized the figures who deciphered ancient texts, unearthing knowledge long buried. But the adult in her dutifully shook its head at the prospect. "We can't, sweetie. There's too much to do here." Emily narrowed her eyes, catching sight of the artifact. "What's that?" she asked. For a heartbeat, Sarah hesitated. The thought of sharing this piece of her father's legacy felt both exhilarating and daunting. She had never intended to involve Emily in this muddle. She wanted to shield her from the danger of becoming entangled in a past forgotten. But as she watched her daughter lean closer, excitement sparkling in her eyes, the barriers began to erode. "This was your grandfather's," Sarah finally said, her voice trembling slightly. "I think it might be linked to something he discovered, something important." "Can I see it?" Emily reached out, and for the first time Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. As she placed the artifact in Emily's hands, a shared bond ignited within their midst. The moment was fragile, yet it felt like a seismic shift, a reminder of their connection to a history that beckoned them forward. With renewed purpose, Sarah decided to visit the local library that afternoon. The dusty shelves had always held a treasure trove of stories, and she hoped to discover more about the intricate symbols etched on the artifact. Could it really be a gateway to understanding her father's life? A map leading to the truths he had forged under layers of secrecy? Her heart raced with a mix of anticipation and fear. As she drove through town toward the library, the faces of the townspeople blurred together, some friendly, others critical of her ambitions. What would they think if they knew she was delving into her father's legacy? What if they mocked her? Yet the budding flame inside her pushed back against the weight of external skepticism. Arriving at the library, she was greeted by the musty aroma of old books and polished wood, a sanctuary for her burgeoning exploration. She navigated through the aisles, skimming titles and seeking out references to Egyptology and her father's work. But as pages turned and history unraveled, the shadows of doubt followed closely. Had she truly been aware of her father's battles? How far had his discoveries truly reached beyond the whispers of their household? Each revelation brought with it a flood of introspection. What authenticity lay at the heart of her own desires to connect the past with the present? As she scribbled notes fervently, something shifted. Perhaps it was the clarity of purpose, or perhaps it was the realization that she was embarking on a new journey, one she had unconsciously been preparing for all along. A new layer of determination settled into her bones. This was about more than just the artifact. It was her chance to reshape not only her destiny, but Emily's as well. Yet, as the sun began to set and shadows stretched across the pages, Sarah stumbled upon an article that left her breathless. It spoke of a secret society dedicated to advancing the study of ancient artifacts and protecting their legacies against exploitation. Her heart raced. Could her father have been involved? The question gnawed at her, ushering forth the undeniable truth. She had stumbled upon something much larger than either of them could have anticipated. Sarah left the library, the weight of her discoveries mingling with an intoxicating thrill of fear and empowerment. She felt herself entering uncharted territory. Would she dare to dig deeper? Or would forces beyond her control pull her back into the shadows of uncertainty? The evening air felt electric as she drove home, determined that, come morning, she would unfurl this chapter of her father's history wide open. But as darkness enveloped her, a shiver of apprehension coursed through her. What if this pursuit led her to confront the very people who had silenced her father's legacy? Sarah's thoughts swirled like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. The weight of her discoveries felt both exhilarating and heavy in her chest. She parked in front of their modest home, where the warm glow of the kitchen light spilled out onto the driveway. It was a beacon, a reminder of all that was familiar, yet it also felt like a threshold to the unknown. Inside, Emily was already engrossed in her homework, the artifact perched on the side table, a silent observer of their mundane evening. That spark of curiosity in her daughter's eyes echoed Sarah's own reverence for the unknown. It was time to nurture that flame, not extinguish it. "Emily," Sarah called, her voice a bridge across the table cluttered with books and papers. "How about a little history lesson tonight?" Emily's head popped up, surprise evident on her face. "About what?" "About your grandfather's work. I found something at the library," Sarah said, watching as Emily's eyes widened in anticipation. As she recounted her discoveries, the artifacts, the secret society, the echoes of her father's voice speaking through dusty texts, she felt a shift within herself. The past was not a rigid mantle of shame. Rather, it was a living tapestry woven with mystery and purpose. She reveled in her daughter's enthusiasm, her questions spinning out like threads connecting their two lives. Together, they explored the labyrinth of her father's legacy, piecing together the fragments of his forgotten journeys. But with every excitatory burst of understanding came a burgeoning anxiety. What if, the more they uncovered, the more dangerous their quest became? The article had hinted at threats posed by those who exploit art and history. The last thing Sarah wanted was to drag her daughter into conflict. After their makeshift lesson, Emily drifted off to sleep, leaving Sarah alone in the dim glow of the kitchen. The artifact called to her silently from across the room. It was now a tangible link to a legacy she had hesitated to embrace. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, her fingers grazing the surface of the piece. The carvings felt alive under her touch,
And in that moment, she realized that this wasn't just her father's journey. It was hers now. Determination solidified within her. She would not be a passive observer in this narrative. She was stepping into a larger story, one that demanded courage and tenacity. Yet, amid this new resolve, shadows lingered. The question remained echoing like a distant thunder. Who were the guardians of her father's legacy? The secret society she had stumbled upon, was it protective or predatory? She remembered the sharpness of that article, how the words danced around potential dangers. What if they were watching her now? She opened her laptop, the screen illuminating the darkness of her surroundings. Her search for the society began with tentative clicks and typed queries. Names, obscure titles, anything she could find. She was willing to unearth the unseen threads of her father's life. Hours slipped by, and just as fatigue threatened to pull her under, a name surfaced. The Conservators.
"Love you too, honey," Sarah replied, her smile veiling the turmoil unsettled inside her chest. The library awaited her next, no longer a refuge, but a potential battlefield. The scent of aged paper and dust mixed with her growing determination as she located the section dedicated to archaeological ethics. With each book she combed through, she unearthed not only historical guidelines, but also personal stories of those who had been wronged in their quests for knowledge. A slight tremor of fear threaded through her veins as she realized how many had been sacrificed on the altar of ambition. Hours slipped by until someone caught her eye. A man in a navy blazer flipping through documents with an audacity that rivaled Sarah's own. With a spark of initiative, she approached him. "Excuse me, are you by any chance a member of the Conservators?" Warm blue eyes turned her way, and a brief smile flickered across his face. "Maybe. What's your interest?" The very question pinned Sarah. She paused, deliberating whether to disclose her intentions or adopt a cunning facade. Lying to gain trust felt wrong, but honesty could expose vulnerabilities. "I'm looking into my father's work. He was involved with some artifacts that I believe are linked to your organization." His curiosity piqued, and she sensed the shift of wheels turning in his mind. "I see," he murmured, already weighing her words. "What's your father's name?" The room stretched in palpable silence as Sarah deliberated. A million thoughts flashed through her mind. What if he deemed her unworthy? What if revealing that connection placed her in danger? Yet fear had already tangled her emotions into the momentum of this chase. She had to trust herself. The stakes were too high to back down. "James Harrington," she said resolutely. He was an archaeologist. The name hung in the air, laden with either reverence or risk. She watched the stranger's expression morph, intrigue blending with professional curiosity. "The Conservators have significant respect for his contributions," he admitted, eyes narrowing slightly as if assessing her next moves. "But there's much to these discussions regarding ethics and possession of artifacts. What do you hope to find?" Answering felt like stepping onto a tightrope stretched over a chasm of uncertainty. "I want to understand his involvement and the impact it had on my family, and find the truth behind what happened with the artifacts." The glimmer in his eyes indicated he recognized the weight behind her words. This wasn't merely academic for her. It was an emotional unraveling of both the past and her identity. The conversation shifted gears as questions bubbled to the surface, and before Sarah could catch her breath, she found herself keeping pace with not only the urgency of her quest, but the energy of someone who could either assist or impede her journey. "Meet me tomorrow evening," he suggested, hinting at the tantalizing depth of the connections she might discover. "There's a lot more to discuss about your father and how we can protect his legacy." As they parted, Sarah grasped the tension of the moment. She stood on the precipice of a professional and personal evolution, but she could feel danger encroaching. How would the conservators protect her father's work and hers? Tomorrow would dawn with possibilities and peril, the weight of decisions pressing heavily upon her like the artifact that had initiated this journey. She was closer to a collision with the hidden world she sought, and the urgency for unmasking truth would only grow stronger. Would she navigate the labyrinth without losing herself? The answers waited, tantalizing and perilous, just beyond her reach. The next morning's light seemed colder, as if preparing her for the revelations that awaited. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, a sense of impending determination woven into the fabric of her thoughts, resplendent yet fragile. Today was pivotal. The shadows that loomed over her father's legacy and her burgeoning career felt heavier than ever, but she was ready to confront them. After dropping Emily off at school, Sarah's heart pulsed with both dread and exhilaration as she made her way to the designated meeting spot. The cafe's ambiance, warm and inviting, was infused with the comforting aroma of brewed coffee, yet it felt paradoxically suffocating, as if every person there was a potential specter of doubt. As she settled at a corner table, her nerves fluttered. What if she discovered that her father was not the man she revered, but rather a part of a more shadowy narrative than she was prepared to handle? A part of her wished she could simply retreat into complacency, where the myths she held about her father reigned unchallenged. Yet the contrasting desire surged within her, driving her to expose reality for what it was, regardless of how unsettling that could be. When Samuel, the stranger from the library, arrived, his presence seemed to cast an anchor. He approached with an ease that belied the gravity of their conversations. "Glad you could make it, Sarah," he said, sliding into the seat opposite her. "Thanks for suggesting this. I have a lot of questions," she replied, her voice steady despite the looming uncertainty. "Questions often lead to unexpected answers," he responded, a cryptic smile lingering on his lips. "Let's start with your father. What do you already know?" His inquiry hollowed out the space around them, compressing the air with unspoken worries. As she recounted tidbits of her father's life, a flicker of recognition crossed his face, amplifying her anxiety. She had discussed her father with others before, but never in relation to such critical scrutiny. "You see," he interjected, "James's work went beyond simple archaeology. He was deeply engaged in ethical debates that the conservators weren't always in agreement with. Some believed he sought truth at the peril of the organization." The words resonated, echoing within her. "Are you saying he was a dissenter?" Not in a rebellious sense, but he questioned everything, even the motives behind artifact acquisitions, including some of our best intentions as conservators. Each revelation rattled her belief system. Her father's legacy began to fracture before her eyes, revealing fissures she had never acknowledged. The ethical grayness of the field cast an unsettling shadow over her aspirations. "Why are you telling me this?" she pressed, unease simmering beneath her curiosity. "What's your stake in all of this?" His gaze dropped momentarily, before locking onto hers with a newfound intensity. "I believe in protecting legacies, and your father's is intricate. The people within the conservators may not share our convictions. Knowledge can be power, but it can also be a weapon. I want your father's legacy to represent the pursuit of truth, not influence." Sarah's heart raced as his words penetrated her desire to sift through that legacy, pushing her toward an emergent understanding of integrity in her field. Samuel offered a lifeline into deep waters where previously she'd only faced tumultuous waves. "Are you prepared for what you might uncover?" he asked, the challenge lingering between them like a high-stakes bet. "I need to know," she said firmly, "not just for me, but for Emily. I need to set the record straight and understand my own place in this." Samuel nodded slowly, visibly impressed with the resolve she mustered. "Then we begin the search. The conservators hold hidden archives that might contain crucial information about your father. Secrets, if unearthed, will challenge every notion of right and wrong in your pursuit." The implications of his words set her heart thrumming. Secrets, the very essence of what drove civilizations to their knees. A dangerous allure that twisted and beckoned at the same time. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, feeling the chasm of uncertainty yawning in front of her. For the first time during their meeting, Samuel leaned closer, an air of conspiratorial intensity enveloping them. "We infiltrate, but we must tread carefully. There's much to expose and much to lose." Decision hung palpably in the air. The urge to defend her father's honor clashed with the instinct for self-preservation, thrusting Sarah into the eye of an ethical storm. Could she decipher the truth without becoming ensnared in the machinations of an organization built on secrets? Tomorrow's meeting with Samuel would not just be about historical legacies. It would challenge everything she thought she knew about the foundations of ethical discovery. The waters were murky, and her resolve was about to be tested beyond the realm of academic inquiry. As she left the café, a sinking feeling settled within her, accompanied by a stirring determination. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, she would either emerge with clarity or face even murkier waters than she'd known. Would the pursuit of truth deepen her understanding or fracture the very notions of legacy she sought to reclaim? As the sun rose the next day, Sarah felt a mixture of trepidation and resolve. The outlandish promises of the café's clandestine revelations echoed in her mind. Today would not only challenge her understanding of her father's legacy, but define her path as a professional in a field riddled with murkiness and moral ambiguity. She hugged Emily tightly before leaving for her meeting. The innocence of her daughter contrasted sharply with the turmoil swelling inside Sarah. Emily deserved clarity, both about her family and the world they inhabited. As she navigated through the bustling streets, each step felt weighted with purpose. What had once been a career driven by passion now blurred into a quest fraught with ethical dilemmas and familial shadows. Arriving at their rendezvous point, a secluded library corner with restrictive shelves that echoed their secrecy, Sarah spotted Samuel deep in conversation with a few other associates. The air was thick with anticipation, an electric charge that made her pulse quicken. Today was the day she would collect fragments of her father's life and determine the veracity of his legacy. "Ready?" Samuel asked as she approached, his demeanor shifting slightly, as if gauging her readiness for the confrontation ahead. "More than ever," she replied, though insecurities stirred within her. They delved into the archives, a labyrinth of dusty tomes and forgotten artifacts, the vastness a stark reflection of the complexity she was about to unravel. Each page they examined bore witness to her father's brilliance, yet the notes scrawled in the margins revealed a grappling mind, dissonance between professional obligations and personal convictions. "I think this is what we need," Samuel said, holding up a folder thick with crumpled papers. The title screamed her father's name, but the ominous annotations hinted at controversies she hadn't anticipated. Sarah felt the floor shift beneath her. With trembling hands, she opened the folder, the mottled pages spilling secrets like confessions. Each line was a thread, connecting her father to heated debates and ethical breaches. The realization sunk in. His reputation was tangled in complexities that ripped apart the halo she had placed over his image. The intellectual posture she sought to emulate began to waver. "What do we do with this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible as her mind raced through the consequences. Were these revelations the foundation on which she could build her own career, or were they shackles that would imprison her within her father's shadow? "We need to confront the conservators," Samuel urged, "to understand the scope of their practices. Your father stood for something. If you're going to reclaim his legacy, you need to reveal the truth, and that truth may very well dismantle everything he built." The thought settled uncomfortably in her chest. She craved knowledge, but recoiled at the vulnerability that came with piercing through the organized web of deception. Would revealing uncomfortable truths fortify her integrity, or would it unravel her foundation entirely? Her internal struggle deepened as she considered the implications. The career she envisioned could easily pivot into a personal crusade against an organization that may not be ready for the truths she unearthed. "Are you willing to lose it all?" Samuel challenged, his eyes searching hers. "Reputation, possibly your job, all for a legacy that might not even be worth reclaiming?" Each word felt like a knife stabbing into her resolve, forcing her to confront the reality of her ambitions. She wasn't just a daughter on a quest. She was a scholar stepping into an ethical battlefield where choices had ramifications that spiraled beyond her control. "I need to think," she replied, taking a step back as uncertainty flooded her senses. What was more important, her father's legacy or the truth? Questions clawed at her. This pivotal moment hung before her like a chasm awaiting a leap. It could lead to empowering revelations or devastating losses. As she stared at the stack of papers, she sensed a profound change, a deeper understanding of what it meant to wield knowledge. With a firm breath, Sarah found the courage to embrace the chaos hovering on the horizon. As she nodded, determination surged through her veins.
Let's expose what needs to be uncovered. As they began to strategize their next course of action, her cell phone chimed urgently with an unknown number. The connection crackled through the silence of the library, presenting her with an unexpected urgency that sent a jolt of apprehension through her. This could be a rupture in the fabric of her plans, or an opportunity she had not anticipated. "Who's that?" questioned, concern creasing his brow as she hesitated, looking at the screen. "I don't know, but I have a feeling it might change everything." With her heart hammering, Sarah answered, not knowing that this call would unravel deeper truths, drawing her further into a world where the boundaries between legacy, truth, and self-identity began to dissolve. The call connected, and a gravelly voice echoed through the receiver. "Is this Sarah?" it asked, each word shadowed with urgency. "Yes, it is," she replied, her pulse racing as uncertainty seeped in. Whatever this was, it felt anomalous, an intersection of her father's world and her own burgeoning quest.
Listen carefully. You don't know me, but I have information about your father's work that could significantly impact your plans and your safety." Instinctively, Sarah glanced at Samuel. His brow furrowed, sensing the gravity of the situation. She motioned for him to listen in. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "Just someone who values truth. But you're walking a dangerous path, Sarah. The conservators won't take kindly to anyone poking around their affairs." Those words settled uncomfortably in her stomach. "What do you mean? Are you suggesting I back off?" "No, you must press forward. It's your only move now, but be cautious. They have eyes everywhere." Before she could respond, the line went dead. The sudden silence enveloped her, leaving a pulsing dread in its wake. The warning resonated with an ache of clarity. She was venturing into treacherous territory, one where shadows lurked with ulterior motives. "What was that about?" Samuel broke the silence, his voice low and measured. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, a mix of apprehension and resolve swelling inside her. "But I think it's a sign to dig even deeper. If there are people watching, it means my actions matter. I can't just back down now." "Just understand the risks," he cautioned. "The truth you're seeking may not only reshape how you see your father, but could also threaten your future in this field." Sarah stood at a crossroads, grappling with the consequences. She could sense her evolution hastening, a metamorphosis that required not just research, but inciting a larger confrontation. The narrative of her father's legacy was changing, reshaping into something darker, vaster. "Let's get started," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. Samuel nodded, the determination wielding power over uncertainty. Their strategy began to morph into a tangible plan, a blend of investigation and assertion aimed at the heart of the conservators. Hours ticked by as they plunged deeper into additional documents and contacts. Each revelation sent ripples of awareness coursing through Sarah, illuminating the stark disparities between her father's image and his reality. Every conversation with Samuel turned into a revelation, not just about the conservators, but also about the frameworks that bound the academic and ethical landscapes they navigated. "Look at this," Samuel said, pulling out a set of documents that detailed covert transactions from the conservators. They had purchased artifacts under questionable pretenses, skirting legal boundaries that Sarah once thought irreversible. "But this could be criminal," she breathed, disbelief interwoven with a surge of empowerment. He was involved in this? Maybe. Samuel scrutinized her closely. But you have to ask yourself, what role did your father play in this? Was he simply a cog in their machine, or command of the wheel? The truth resonated differently in Sarah. It was one thing on Unhear's father's misdeeds. It was another to confront their impact on her life and career. She marveled at the possibilities: redemption, reclamation, or annihilation. And each avenue asserted how closely tied she was to this cathartic journey. In a moment of clarity, she felt the stirrings of a new ambition rising within her. This was more than her father's legacy, more than even her career. It was her call to action, a means to carve her path amid the chaos. Just then, her phone chimed again. This time, it was a message from another unknown contact, a single line that sent a chill down her spine. "You're in over your head. Stop now or lose everything." Samuel glanced at her, concern flashing across his features. "What do we do now?" The stakes had escalated, the risk unpredictable, as fear mingled with excitement. Sarah understood that the truth was not merely an endpoint. It was her weapon against a world dense with deception. This was the moment to embrace the chaos, to defiantly plunge into the murky waters ahead. As the day waned, she made a silent vow to unveil not only the corrupt practices of the conservators, but to transform the legacy of her father into something she alone could shape. "Let's get to work," she declared, the urgency palpable in her voice. As they strategized, she felt the currents of change propelling her forward, uncertain, yet unafraid. But little did she know, the deeper she dug, the more formidable the adversaries would become, leading to a confrontation that would test every belief she had ever held. Would she emerge with truth, or would she uncover something that would shatter her very existence? The night air hung heavy around Sarah as she paced a narrow strip within their cluttered office, her mind buzzing with unresolved questions and half-formed theories. The weight of the warning loomed over her like a storm cloud, and every flicker of light outside cast long shadows against the walls, mirroring her turmoil. Plans edged at her consciousness, forming the foundation of what she now recognized as more than an investigation. It was her defining moment, a chance to shape her own narrative from the ashes of her father's legacy. "Where do we even start?" Samuel's voice broke through her reverie, urging her back into the present urgency. She turned to him, determination settling in, an unshakable resolve tightening her posture. "We need to connect with someone who has insider knowledge on the conservators," Sarah said, forming a mental list of potential contacts. "Risky," he cautioned, folding his arms against the uncertainty in her voice. "You're already attracting attention. What if we reach out to someone who doesn't want to be found?" "It's a risk I'm willing to take," she insisted, the intensity of her voice fortifying her conviction. The prospect of confrontation loomed large, and she could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as she leaned into the thrill of the unknown. But, as the night deepened, an unsettling thought surfaced. If someone was indeed watching her, what lengths would they go to protect their secrets? With that lingering dread anchoring her thoughts, she took a deep breath, bracing herself for the revelations ahead. What awaited her on the other side of this endeavor could either vindicate her father or destroy them both. As she prepared for a meeting that could change the trajectory of her life, Sarah whispered to the stillness around her, "What have I awakened?" The next morning, Sarah's phone buzzed with an email notification. Her heart raced as she scanned the screen, eyes darting for Dr. Lewis's name. The short response confirmed a meeting later that afternoon. An exhilarating mix of anticipation mingled with dread settled in her stomach. This was it, the first step into a world teeming with buried truths. As she stepped into the coffee shop that served as their rendezvous point, an unexpected wave of doubt washed over her. The quaint cafe buzzed with chatter, a stark contrast to the internal storm brewing within her. She fished her notebook from her bag, thumbing through the pages filled with notes and questions that had emerged from her sleepless night. "Focus," she whispered to herself, reminding her that understanding her father's past was worth the risk. When Dr. Lewis arrived, he brought a palpable energy with him, his presence commanding yet gentle. The wrinkles lining his face spoke to years of experience, a lifetime's worth of adventures and discoveries. As they exchanged pleasantries, Sarah studied him intently. This was not just a man, he was a living repository of knowledge, a key that could unlock the past she was so desperately seeking. After ordering coffee, they settled into a small booth, and Sarah wasted no time in voicing her intentions. "Dr. Lewis, I need your insight into the conservators. My father was involved, and I believe there's more to the story. I think he might have been threatened." He regarded her with careful scrutiny. "It's a dangerous path you're on, Sarah. The conservators are not just a group. They are a network that doesn't take kindly to scrutiny. You may find yourself caught in their crosshairs. I'm prepared for that. My father's legacy is at stake, and I refuse to let it be buried without answers," she declared, forcing resolve into her voice, masking the tremor of fear she felt deep inside. She watched the subtle shift in Dr. Lewis's demeanor. The shadow of doubt lifted slightly, replaced by an encouraging glimmer in his eyes. "In that case, what you're seeking is certainly attainable, but you'll have to tread lightly. Your father collected significant artifacts. If there are hidden records, the conservators likely have them." Sarah nodded, spurred on by the old archaeologist's words.
Contra gli principi.
What would happen if she exposed the darkness hidden beneath the veneer of the conservators? Arriving at a small, unmarked office building, she took a deep breath, feeling the shift within herself. This wasn't just her quest any longer. It was a reckoning, both for her father and for the path she would walk. The oppressive gray skies above felt symbolic of everything she feared. Yet in that uncertainty lay her liberation. The office of her first contact, Elena, was cluttered with books and artifacts, a chaotic hint of a life spent tirelessly navigating the realms of archaeology and ethics. The moment she entered, the air thickened with a mix of anticipation and urgency. "Elena Smirnov, I'm Sarah Harrington," she announced, a rush of nervous energy coursing through her. Elena turned from her desk, surprised but intrigued. "Sarah Harrington, James Harrington's daughter?" she asked, disbelief giving way to recognition. "He was a brilliant man, but went against the grain. What brings you here?" "His legacy," Sarah said, her words infused with newfound strength. "I need to know the truth about what he discovered and why it could threaten our family." With a knowing nod, Elena motioned for Sarah to sit. As they talked, Feelings of shared passion ignited a connection that made Sarah realize the depths of her endeavor. Each anecdote shared about her father painted a fuller picture. Her father had been a formidable force, but his choices meant navigating a treacherous landscape fraught with ethical boundaries, murky acquisitions, and hidden motives. Elena detailed the nature of the artifacts James had collected, each precious object tethered to its own secret history, many lost to bureaucratic greed or exploited by corporations oblivious to their intrinsic value. Your father fought against that, Elena stated firmly. He believed that true history must be honored, not owned. That ethos cost him dearly. With those words, the glassy facade of uncertainty cracked. Sarah felt empowered. She was wresting control from the shadows that had obscured her father's legacy for too long. "How can I continue this fight?" she asked, driven by purpose. As their conversation delved deeper into the complexities of ethical discovery, the lingering effects of Elena's revelations ignited a fire within Sarah. She committed herself to exposing the truth, to reclaim her father's name, not just for her sake, but for the generations that would follow, beginning with Emily. Before she left, Elena pressed a folder into Sarah's hands. "These are contacts and evidence. It's a treacherous road you're on, but if you're serious about seeking justice for your father, these leads will bring you closer to uncovering the conservator's dealings." "It's time to pull the curtain back," Sarah declared, her determination steady. The thrilling sense of purpose surged through her as she clutched the materials, each page a pact with her father's legacy. Driving home, Sarah felt the weight of her resolve solidify, creating a protective barrier against the uncertainties that had previously haunted her thoughts. She was stepping into her own skin, becoming an advocate for truth, and veering farther away from the fear that had threatened to paralyze her. However, as her phone buzzed, that haunting, familiar chill gripped her. Another message demanding attention. "Leave it alone. The conservators are not to be trifled with. Don't force something you can't control." A palpable shiver coursed through her, but this time it merely fueled her resolve. Sarah read the message again and again, a disruptive reminder not to look back. She would confront whatever forces awaited her. She carried her father's spirit within her. Days melted into nights as Sarah plunged deeper into research, utilizing Elena's contacts to shed light on the artifacts, revealing the covert operations that tied the conservators to dark dealings. Each discovery surged her confidence, clenching the threads of her father's story tighter in her grasp. She could not shy away from the darkness that surrounded him. It was a part of her own legacy now. In this whirlwind of anticipation, Sarah's fears morphed into determination. In a culmination of her efforts, she planned a meeting with key members of the conservators to confront their practices armed with her findings. Would they acknowledge her father's contributions, or would they attempt to silence her voice? With Emily's unwavering support fueling her ambitions, Sarah knew her journey was not solely her own. As she faced her impending confrontation, the echoes of her father's legacy intertwined with the visions of a new future for both herself and her daughter, cementing the realization that her fight was as much for Emily and for the truth. As she stepped into the meeting room, she felt a wave of confidence. Sarah was not just a daughter retracing her father's footsteps. She was a force of change with a mind sharpened by fearlessness and passion.
She remembered the countless late-night discussions with Emily about fostering authenticity and how they would unearth their family's history together. Awareness dawned that she was no longer merely an investigator. She was now an advocate, standing resolutely to ensure her father's legacy would illuminate the darkness rather than become a casualty of it. With that thought, she opened the door, ready to redefine a legacy that had long needed reclamation. The curtain drew back as she stepped into the light. As she looked around the room filled with members of the conservators, she knew without a doubt her father would not be silenced any longer. Determination surged through her as she prepared for the confrontation ahead, a profound transformation within her manifesting with each calculated breath. She would achieve the respect and honor her father's name deserved, or forge a new path built on unwavering truth.
A Sarah enfrentou os desafios à frente. She felt não só do peso da história, mas também as exaltações de estar na branca de empoderamento. E então, she truly began to embrace the legacy that had always been hers to carry. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that test the limits of courage and truth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for transformative journeys. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's bold confrontation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread this message.